Okay, so I think I say this every single time, but I am really excited for today's guest. I have wanted to get her in this chair since we had the idea for this show. I got to meet her on a recent project, Dancing with the Cincinnati Stars. She is definitely a Cincinnati Star, a legend. You'll see the conversation is so rich. Every time we took a break, we just launched right back in. So I'm gonna tell you now, some of these edits are not so clear. I think even from the beginning, from the moment we sat down, we had so much to talk about. Without further ado, because the conversation is so rich, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on stage with David Cho, Miss Iris Roley. I am having a blast already here with our special guest today. None other than the activist, the force, the community leader, the all things Miss Iris Roley. How you doing?
I am doing as well as we all are, but I'm better because I'm in your presence.
Come on.
Mr. David, and in the presence that made me attempt to look internally about what I never thought I could do. You know how people do say this, like, I always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so to be able to do Dancing with the Cincinnati Stars under your lead, you're and Mr. Jeremy's, and Dancing with Antonio and all the other people, and just seeing how we all were pushing and striving to push forward and to make you all proud of us.
And which you did.
It was
and
amazing.
That project was so much fun because like I'd gotten like in your space before, and I've of course like heard your name and admired you from afar, but that project was the first time that we actually got to spend any real time together. And it was crazy because those rehearsals, I don't know if you remember, and it's like we're supposed to be doing all this dancing, and we would just get into these deep conversations
all the time,
every single time, like, oh shoot, there was our hour and I ain't even turned the music on.
See you next week. But those things help you realize it was all in divine order.
Yeah.
How the order came was all in divine order. And it wasn't that those things didn't assist because they did.
Mm-hmm.
It made me comfortable enough to hear your voices and say, just go for it. Just keep going. Just allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Right.
To fail. Right. It's okay to misstep.
Right.
But as long as you keep practicing, and it's the things that you learn that as children, but as adults, we tend to, if we're not in a world that calls for repetitiveness, to repeat and do over, then you kind of forget where your strength really comes from. And that's what those conversations help me to realize is that it's in all of it. And it was just amazing. I thank you guys so much for that.
I thank you. Like
we count HELL for it. But.
We did. Wanting to do Mississippi Goddamn, of course, which was such a perfect thing for you, and that thought we developed this whole scene. We're really kind of inspired by like you as Harriet, you as like this not savior of the people, but protector of the people. And I remember you felt like really strongly about that. Of course, we had the shotgun, which caused the stir, and but it's all right.
It's all right.
Talk to me about that feeling of protector. What does that mean to you?
Wow, it's such a heavy responsibility when you think about it, because often my head is always on the swivel as it relates to Black people, and especially Black children and Black women, and that who's protecting them in certain spaces. We do these things called "When did you last feel safe?" Right? To just close your eyes for 10 minutes and think about the last time you felt safe. And more often than not, for Black people, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And you almost have to.
If you really think about it.
If you really think about it, you have to, and you almost want to make up something, make something be that. But that's not really safety. And so I think about that all the time. When is it that we can free up our minds to just think about enjoying life?
And what's unfortunate though is I'm not sure if you don't take that time and if you're not that intentional to go, like, when was the last time I felt safe? I'm not sure that even the average person understands that they're in that predicament, which kind of, in my experience, and I would love to hear from you, I feel like makes the work harder because we're trying to give something to someone that they don't even know that they need. How can you miss what you never had?
Yeah. How can
And
you know that you
yeah,
even need to have it
exactly, yeah. And
if
for
you've
our folks
never had it?
being at the bottom of the cast for so long, being used to the scraps, right? There are some people who really, still stand for the Confederacy and such, and firmly in their hearts, like, believe, like, Black folk knew what they had, and they were grateful to their slave owners. There's those narratives out there that, if they're not corrected over time, in my opinion, our folks subconsciously, take in this, like, this is okay.
Yeah.
So not only is the work about, like, standing up to power, but then we have to spend so much energy almost educating our own people to say there's more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, and just to answer that question, is that I try to demonstrate through my work what protection looks like for us.
What is that?
And so, what it looks like is a constant state of advocacy and awareness and being present in what your familiar, immediate surroundings look like.
Yeah.
So, my politics are local. I start there first because this is where we live, right? And then everything else pours in and what we can do at the state level, then federally. But locally, the power that we have here to begin to assemble what protection looks like. So protection for most people, they just say we want the police. Well, we don't want the police.
Yeah.
Because wanting police for Black people can turn into a situation.
A whole other situation.
A whole nother.
Yeah.
So what it looks like is advocacy and activism and changing policies and procedures and how policing police Black people. That was our whole federal lawsuit.
And that's how it happens, folks. We don't went from intro to Dancing with the Cincinnati Stars, Harriet Tubman, Protection of the People, all the way up to Policing the Police in a matter of a couple of minutes. We're going to take a quick break, but I do want to come right back to what we were talking about, make sure that we don't lose it. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on stage with David Choate.
Still to come, On Stage with David Choate.
When you take things away from groups of people that they need, because we've never been given fully what we should have gotten in return.
Exactly.
Based on all the trauma and drama that we've been through.
I am so excited to share that we have finally got all of the tickets up on our website, and tickets are now on sale for the first season of David Choate Productions. With the all-new DCP and RDT season pass, you're getting 9 shows. That's one show every single month beginning in November. I hope to see you in the theater. Your ticket to my show, somebody else's ticket to an opportunity.
And
that was a good question.
That was awesome. I'm like, I just never know where we gonna end up. I'm like, this is without a script, people.
Hey, Jim, you had to think about my answer. I was like, what did he say? But Reverend Lynch used to do us like that right down the street at 1839 Finley and Elm, where New Prospect was and started.
Yeah.
And when we were doing the work of police reform, we was screaming, what the scream is. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it now? And I remember one time that little force said, what does justice look like? And we were all like, huh?
Because we talk about all this stuff, but what does it? And I'm glad you talked about, like, it's not always the police, because even with I'm trying to really think about, like, how we can be impactful here in the West End. like, we use this space, and it'd be so much. And just what, a week ago, from the date that we're doing this show, um, we just had like the 11-year-old that was killed, and he's the only one who lost his life, and that was terrible enough. But then there's several others that were shot and injured, and it's like, these are babies, and we know these people, right? And it's like, I had to ask, what is the solution? Because one would think, then yes, we need to pump more police into these neighborhoods. But that was something I specifically wanted to dialogue with you, because it's like, is that the answer? And I say that because, like, I look at what's happening in the West End, and to know the history of Cincinnati is to know that it is not by accident that the West End is the community that has all of these problems. And there were very systemic, very, very clear, like, governmental policies and things that led us to this situation, including over policing, right?
Including over policing.
So then what does protection look like?
So I think that you are grandfathered into what we're going to call your problem solver. In order to determine what the problem is, you really have to determine what the problem is. And those are steps. Mm-hmm. The foundation of the collaborative agreement rests on problem solving, changing the philosophy of how police see they need to address crime and disorder in the city, and also utilizing it for all city departments and for the community.
Right.
And what does that look like? When you specifically talk about the West End, we know that Black people in the West End have been treated 3 times more unfair than Black folk in the rest of Cincinnati. So it's happened to West End 3 times before it finds its way in other communities. And we know that Black folk in the West End have not been reinvested into.
Yeah. And that's the piece.
And when you see the reinvestment happen, David, you see the gentries move in and push people out.
Yeah.
And so the systematic way of trying to change communities or rebuild them is the systematic way of pushing people out who need the rebuilding, who should have gotten it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? Who should have had some wrongs righted that way.
Right.
But allowed to stay and helped. So when you read the collaborative agreement, paragraph 13 instructs us, when we talk about it's not always the police, imagine education rising. Imagine us working on education for the past 20 years. And housing for the past 20 years. And health for the past 20 years. And equal pay for the past 20 years. Then that's when you rise.
And it's not just 20 years, boats. Right?
Yeah, it's not. I
saw
just
a meme.
That. Yeah.
Oh,
God. Now your head is about to explode. I know,
because I was like, oh, Lord, now I'm in the next age group. But it's like somebody say 20 years ago, and I'm thinking like 1980, and they're referring to like 2003. And I was like, oh, you're right. Because, but this conversation, and I think that's what, I, for one, don't know how I got into this space, because I was like,
it had nothing to do
I'm just
with
running
you.
a dance studio.
But you asked the question.
I just want to do a show.
But you asked the question, how do you make West End? So for West End, and I'm sorry to interrupt, because I'm getting old.
Come on.
They be fleeting.
Yep.
But on Lynn Street, set the Art Consortium, where children went into a facility for years.
Yep.
To learn art, to learn dance,
yep,
to learn culture, to learn respect, to learn each other, to hear intergenerational conversations. And when it was taken away.
Exactly.
When you take things away from groups of people that they need, because we've never been given fully what we should have gotten in return.
Exactly.
Based on all the trauma and drama that we've been through.
And that's what sucked me in, because when I saw how layered and nuanced, and it seems like, we're the type of people who's never content, right? And we get labeled angry all the time, and it's like, what would make you happy? But it's what you just said. For one, this conversation extends far beyond 20 years. It's 40s, 60s. It's like, hello.
Since we've been
since we've been on this land, it is so tangled. And I don't think people really give weight, respect to, there is no other race of people that have been targeted and have the history in this country like African Americans.
And then always told, pull up by your bootstrap when we can never.
Yeah, and then so then you start to see, like you said, there was a time we were not allowed to get that job. And even when we would do the same work, we were paid significantly less.
Yes.
And, you know, we weren't allowed to move into that neighborhood. Literally, charters in neighborhoods. You know, I think it was just recently that somebody peeped in Norwood. Like, it was still stuff in there.
Yes.
Like, and it's like, I need to take that out.
And this is in the third decade of the 21st century.
Right, right. And then to understand, oh, separate, you know, or segregation is over, but it's like, when you take away, when the pay disparity is so great and you take away those jobs and you don't invest in education, and then the people are poor, and then you redline them into neighborhoods, then, but you go to school based on your zip code.
And you live, how you live is based on your zip code.
Yep,
You know, David, someone told me recently that, or told my husband that your wife goes to bed with her fist balled up because I wake up swinging. Because of
Were
that.
they lying?
No, they weren't.
Exactly.
They weren't. But because of what you just said, you see the need is so great.
Yeah.
And it's so overwhelming that you know that Revolutionary Dance Company can't do it alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how deep it's overwhelming seeing children who are eager, who have this thing within them, like you had as a child, that, and that not only wants to develop that, but see it as a means and a way to probably get out of where they are, right? But can't see how to connect it. So when you say, how do we change, how do you contribute and change things in the West End, we have to understand that sustainability and the continuous generational building for us is something that somebody is always destroying. Always. Whether it is removal of fathers from homes, we can look at many things that contributed to that. All the laws, if you needed assistance. I saw something, let me say this, oh my God, and this sent me over the edge. I cried my heart out. And you know, you're scrolling on social media, and I finally found something of significance, and it was telling a story about Black people in the South in Mississippi. And when they started to bring in the social services from the federal government, there was a mother of maybe 10, her and the father still together, because that's who we are, and that's who we were. They told the father that in order for services to be rendered to his wife and children, he would not only have to leave his family, Jeremy, he would have to leave the state.
Yeah.
Just look at,
and
now
you look at how that is from the beginning, you know, being very strategic on we need the strongest, but then killing off some of the strongest to set an example.
And wait a minute, how about this? And even setting the design change in minds, because you talk to young folk now who are 20, they don't know about fathers being in the home and what the role should be.
Ooh, you about to step. And on that note, because we about to launch into a whole nother thing, because I see where this is going. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Still to come on stage with David Choate.
People had been breaking into the parents' cars. They saw them there. And then, like, the parents are tussling in the street.
Wow.
The door closed, so her parents are on the other side. She was stuck gratefully inside and knew to come back up to find me.
I'm telling you, when I saw that, it broke my heart. I was like, wow, it just solidifies what you already
Yeah.
know that you know that you know.
Yep. Yep.
How do you take a father away from 10 children?
Yep. And that's just one example.
And then you take the mother, they living in a house, and
Like, in order for us to help you,
you
let's
gotta.
break you. Yeah.
My mother was one of the first 6 black women to move in English Woods, and she got kicked out because it was the projects. You all do know that they were designed for World War II veterans and their wives.
Which project?
All of them
Oh, wow,
across the
no.
country.
Oh, no.
That's why they look the way that they do.
Hmm.
And so as their people would come home from wars, they would get GI Bills and other things to move up and move out. That was just housing then. When we started to populate, wasn't anything to help us move out.
Mhm.
So now you have multi-generational of us living in these now called project-based housing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or public housing,
Yeah.
which isn't conducive for growth, because in order to live in them, and I lived in English Woods, so you couldn't have your baby daddy. You couldn't have additional help. Just think about what that does.
There was a time, and I think it was, oh God, the name escapes me, but it was a project that they got rid of, but essentially right here in the West End. But they wrote in the paper at the time that the living conditions in those projects were not suitable for a mistreated animal. But this is what pretty much the black folk in Cincinnati were concentrated and forced to live in. Again, because of, like, a lot of people don't know, like, there was a good number of black people that had migrated here to Cincinnati, but before we really expanded beyond the riverfront, Cincinnati was pretty much not so segregated cities, simply because everybody was right there on the riverfront,
living in a tent.
So, like, as they started to figure out, like, new hills are like, oh, Price Hill in this neighborhood, and the whites started to move out, and then we're starting to create, these lines. It was like, how can we concentrate all of the black people into this one? And, like, yeah, I gotta stay here.
Right here.
And
they charged you a $500 bond in the year of 1839 to live in the city of Cincinnati. Can you calculate that money today? See what that would equal out to?
Right.
And where do we even get $500?
And then if we have a conversation around how do we rectify those, or, dare we say the R word, reparation, it's like,
I said it.
We look crazy, or we look radical. And, and it's exactly what you said. It's a training of the mind. Because I remember thinking, I think, if I'm honest, I really believe the first time I ever, like, heard your name, I remember thinking, oh, she's radical. Because we don't get taught this in school.
And
so
actually,
you're the lone voice that's out here talking about how bad things are for black people. And I'm like, oh, I feel pretty free, right? Like, this is far different than slavery. There's nothing wrong with my life. Until I live a little longer. Try to do something.
Trying to be free.
Right. Try to actually feel what it feels like to be free. And then go, oh, not what I thought.
Not at all.
And then you start to learn. Like,
but everybody else has gotten reparations, David. It's so amazing that
the slave owners got reparations.
Do you know the same people that we just sold our 337 miles of railway to paid reparations to Jewish folk in the state of Florida in 2018, $60 million to build a railway through their community? Because you know why? Somehow they connected that those trains carried their people to those camps of death and destruction.
Wow.
And they negotiated a deal with them. And
well,
so
we can't negotiate nothing.
We can't not anything to build people. So yeah, the funds will help fix the streets and give you another rec center, which David will not be able to have his dance studio and have programming in. And yes, they will do some things. And yes, some black people will get jobs. Yes, some black people will get contracts, maybe. but the capacity that we need to interrupt the racial wealth gap in this town, to increase the net income or the net worth of African Americans in this town from $1,700 at least to reach where it is for non-Black people at $77,000.
Yeah.
Right now. This is where we are right now.
But that's the piece people don't know. And that's where we started, right? Like I remember thinking like, yeah, if I get $13 an hour, like I'm doing real good, you know. I hear people boasting, like
well, you weren't thinking about inflation though, were you?
Right, you weren't thinking about inflation, or wasn't, if you're not aware of what your counterpart is making, doing the same thing or less than you, you're not as infuriated, and I even now, and just working for myself, but seeing how exponentially harder that is, because I'm like, I would have to secure enough to not just take care of self, but to build a table to now support someone else. And that's where I was like, oh, this system, like, I guess it's my own show, I can say it, this system is fucked up. And like, because there is no there is no way possible I can build a sustainable organization. I do have enough now, and I'm grateful for all that I do have, right? Where I can, do a show. I can finally pay my rent. I can, pay a car note. This is like new information, Iris.
Right.
like this is new.
Like last week.
Right. And I'm like, that's not rich, David. Like, that's blessed. And I'm like, it took me all of this to get to a spot where I can finally live, not like survive, like not thrive, just survive.
You barely.
And I'm like, and so what are the people under me doing? If I can barely pay rent, is it no surprise that, today we're taping our show, but the show that aired today, one of the people on our staff talking about the fact that today they're experiencing homelessness.
See?
And it's like, you're in this, and we talked about our friend and making sure everybody is comfortable because it's cold in here. Because, we work in a space that has no heat.
Right.
That, like, I got babies that practice in here in their tights. And, when they come down, the very first time I had kids in this space, we sent people out. Now we always, escort people out. I had one of our girls, she was just 5 at the time. I just hear screaming, running back up the steps, screaming at the top of her lungs, something's happening outside. I asked Garrett, can you watch kids? I run downstairs. People had been breaking into the parents' cars. They saw them there. And then, like, the parents are tussling in the street.
Wow.
The door closed, so her parents are on the other side. She was stuck gratefully inside and knew to come back up to find me. And it's like, if one person would have had a firearm, can you imagine how different that scene would have been? Like, they're having to fight, like, criminals to come to ballet class?
Yeah.
But I look crazy when I try to connect the arts.
You don't look crazy.
To equity, to, like, it is so much more than, like, it's so much.
It's mind-blowing, but it is your growth that will sustain your dream. And the blessing is that you're able to receive the thought that come. And the ability and the perseverance to do. You got this because you kept pushing, and you put people around you to build a model that should be working. It should be working.
We were talking just this morning, Jeremy and I. It was like, we got a whole bunch of nothing. It's like so much going on and nothing at all. Like, it should work. Like,
you shouldn't have to. You should be able to see the fruit of the labor every
Yeah.
day.
But
because
is America a meritocracy?
Hey, and the forces are even bigger and more intentional about not allowing you to fulfill the promise that you know in your heart and in your head that you want to do. You're still feeding that inner child in you.
Yeah.
And you know you're trying to feed the children.
Yeah.
The space to stretch and dream and be okay with self.
And I want to make sure that we're clear on what's being said. Because, I talk about support Black art. I talk about inequities and stuff like that. And I realize that my organization is doing far better than so many other deserving organizations in the city. And I want to say that's a layer. That's my point. Is, for one, we should be having this level of support for this whole pool. Like, it shouldn't be I'm the only one, who has like X. If that means that all these other people who are also doing the work don't get anything as well. But also to see that at this level that people think like, oh, RDT is set. David's like doing all, like, I want you to see.
But you can only handle so many children.
We can only handle so much. And the way in which we have to operate at this level is the point. Like, if we're the example, oh, there's a problem. If we're the example, because the example shouldn't be the no HVAC warehouse.
And so,
the example shouldn't be staff that can't afford living. The example shouldn't be no staff at all. And so on that point, we're about to wrap up, but we got one more segment for you guys. Man, this is so good. I don't think I have to say it.
It's called healing.
Don't go anywhere.
Still to come, on stage with David Choate.
So where I feel safe at, David, is knowing that I've done, at the end of the day, that all I can for my people. That is something that you even say that. And you know what? I often think 50 years ago, we had way more with less.
We've always done more with less. And I think that's the problem. From slavery, we figured out music. We figured out culture.
Art, everything.
We figured out
health, math,
we
reading,
figured out like
language,
engineering.
We still haven't figured out. I don't know.
We ain't figured out us.
Maybe you and Jeremy ain't figured out which Africans built the pyramids and how they did it. We know we come from greatness.
Yeah,
it's just been.
But we've always
out of us.
I think because we said it referring to us as Revolution Dance Theater, and I started saying it regarding myself, and I was like, "You ain't special." Like, that is what Black people as a whole have done. Like, we were taking the mantra, we do a lot with a little. And it's something that I'm not sure if I'm proud of, because I think it perpetuates where we are. We have always demonstrated that we can do a lot with a little. So why do you need any more?
Your insight is the blessing.
And it's like,
because you need more, because there are more children.
But I think on the outside, they go, oh, look how much you've done.
This.
You've got this.
Look at what you've done. They'll come in here and it can be this today's cold, and knowing tomorrow and the next day is gonna get colder. But it's okay.
But it's okay. Look at how much you have. How dare you complain? Do a lot with a little. But then what drives me nuts is, because we do so much, and this is where the conversation turns into systems, right? That was the second part of yes, RDT is funded well according to current systems that say you can only get so much if your impact is only, your numbers are only this or your budget size is only that. Well, if we are a nonprofit and a significant part of our budget size is grant or contributed income, how will we ever exponentially grow that budget if we're not eligible for higher dollar amounts, right? So you stay on this hamster wheel, or if we really want to talk about scaling real impact, I cannot say how much it infuriates me when I see dollars that are earmarked for the African American community and how they go to organizations, predominantly white, and we need the allyship, right? But they'll hire a couple of people, and then it's like, oh, look what they did, and it's like, let's support that. Or like they'll do one program, or have one kid in a class, and it's like, let's throw all this money this way because like they're impacting Black culture. And here you have an entire institution that has, I'll hire 1 and 2 and 3
that needs to be sustained. So in a minute, what you'll hear, and this kind of infuriates me for the gatekeepers that look like us. So somebody else will come up with a dance, and everybody will go running
because we love the new,
the shiny of the new.
Yeah,
but the ones
and which
that have
I'm trying to get them to
sustained,
see is, if you would invest in your own, we can get there. Every institution that you celebrate today didn't do it overnight.
Did not.
People don't like that we even call ourselves a professional company.
Why?
Oh, they say the quality isn't there, or like the level of technique of the dancers, and the fact that like Juliana, she's 13 years old, and it's all one big social experiment to me, because what you get to see is the two things are the same. And every time we take the stage, we show you what it looks like at this level versus what it could look like at that level.
Right.
At every step of the way, every time we had more funding, we had more capacity. And so now when I talk about money, I don't even use the word money, I use the word capacity.
Yeah.
We have always been at what our funding allows us to. So yeah, we are a professional company funded at a level that leading player is 13 years old.
And you become,
because I can't. Where's the money gonna go?
We
have the knowledge to hire more, but who's coming to work for free?
But you also have to develop people to become professionals. So everybody doesn't wake up and become, and then it's
and if she's pulling, mind you, it's not that we just have a 13-year-old out there, is that we have a 13-year-old that is working, that is putting in the time, that's investing in the technique, that commands a paycheck.
Yes.
We have corporations, people, groups who come, to see this company perform, right? So by all means and definition, anybody who gets paid for their service is a professional.
It's a professional.
Right. And it's like, we get to see how much this thing is growing, and it's just demonstrating every time you invest in us, we yield results.
Let me tell you this, David.
If you invest bigger, we'll yield bigger results.
I had a small skirmish about dancing with the Cincinnati Stars, right?
Give it to us.
Cincy Stars, right?
Yep.
And so folk didn't know about revolutionary dance theater. They didn't know about this company. And so they were like, oh my God, they got you, and you're over there dancing with them. I said, do you know anything about David Kochi? Do you know anything about RDT? Do you know anything? Do you know where they are?
Yeah.
Because you automatically assume that it was the other side that does what you see typically on TV. And I said, well, first off, this is a Black company. These are Black organizations that we're raising funds for. And I have the most beautiful Black dance instructors that you could ever imagine. And so what might your problem be?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we just don't know what we don't know. But I do want to harken back, because I know we'll be ending, because the gifts that you have given the city, the keys back to righting wrongs and showing children that it's okay to be expressive through dance. And you may not want to grow up and be a professional. You may just want to be able to express yourself as you grow into life through dance, through song, through acting, because it can be all of that, right?
Right.
And that is the blessing to us that you bring through this. And you're not just a dance company, you're changing what dance companies look and feel like.
Yeah, what
and
they
what
should do.
yeah,
in my
what our
opinion,
expectations are. What you did for us, the setting of the stage, all of the production. The production is an action thing. It's
Yeah.
not just a word, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Production, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's all work. Yeah.
It means to do something. And so
And I think for
Yeah.
us, other organizations I've seen, and you have to be a good steward of your things and your time and your people. And that was the point I was making about really scaling impact, though. Like, if we can so freely give of our resources to partner with community
that was
organizations, to
amazing.
do stuff like that, to take our people and elevate them consistently, you know, I think people with $1 million budgets should be doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
I think if we really start to ask what investing in Black people looks like, we would stop being so easily, is it entertained, appeased? You know,
It's all of it. When y'all get that word, make it one, entertains and we're trying to approve, include, be part of something that we shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah. And now, you know, we're talking way bigger than dance companies. We're talking, and you know more than I, how this is a system that is replicated across sectors in the fabric of, you know, government and systems. And it's like, if we really truly invested in Black people, this is what that looks like. But it's always just enough.
It's crumbs.
You know,
it's enough to fight over with other Black people.
Yep.
It's enough to fail, and it's little enough to go to jail for, because the bar is always this low when we make a mistake.
Yep. Yeah, the bar has to be up here to be rewarded, but you know, it is rather low.
The bar is low.
And to be completely honest, like, it's something that worries me, because like, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I try to have these conversations with people that I look up to and admire. And you know, you've kept it real with me about, you know, it ain't easy. It's a thankless job. And you know, but one thing I've heard people say time and time again is one of people's greatest pastimes is to build you up just to tear you down. And it's like, I get nervous when too many people say good job. When too many people are like, "Oh, David," and I'm like, "Don't build me up, please don't, because I just want to do what I do."
But take the build up and use the build up.
Well, I just try to stay conscious of not getting put in a place that somebody feels like they can take me away.
Don't react in the way that the build up becomes you. React in the way that you know, and stay true to that inner core of you that keeps you questioning and wondering. But the inner core, the inner younger David that wanted to dance, that wanted a place just to be safe, that wanted all of those things.
That's what it was. And I think that's what, like, My Color, My World campaign is. And it's like, I just wanted a place to be safe. And I couldn't articulate that. And that's why I try to, like, do the Dream Project and do the stuff with the kids to get them to see, like, I'm not trying to perpetuate division or things. I am trying to get people to want
There
more.
are folks out here that got that covered.
Exactly.
You don't have to worry about that. But if you keep pouring into those babies about creating more spaces where people are safe. That is
where you don't have to feel
legacy.
small.
No.
Because it's a problem when people talk to you that way.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, you know, we need more kids that know how to fight for themselves in a real way.
And you ask them.
Yeah.
Give them 5 seconds. Just close your eyes and think about the last time you felt safe. Those statements from children should be the principles that guide us forward.
Yeah.
if children can't give you, like when I was outside playing baseball in the street, or I was walking my dog, something very simple. I was at home in my bedroom. I was with my mom. When you see the struggle to say to safety, what does safe mean? Because there's a difference between feeling safe and safety.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Because there's people at work not safe. Can't wear your hair like you want to. That's not safe.
That's not safe.
Can't,
You can barely express yourself.
Yes. Yeah. The code switching, the endless number of things. Yeah. The not appearing to be too upset.
So where I feel safe at, David, is knowing that I've done, at the end of the day, that all I can for my people. And whether people agree or disagree with me, and more times than not, I'll have someone older than I that will come to me and say, baby, thank you for saying and doing that. I appreciate that. That is exactly what we needed. Bam, right there.
Yeah.
And it happens to you. You know it does.
Yeah.
It happens to you. So I find safety there, knowing that even though I may be struggling to get us safe in my little small part of what I'm supposed to do, that I'm trying to execute it. I'm actually pushing forward to get it done. That's my safety net. Because one little piece of change that I can get begets another piece of change I'm going to get. And so I have to reside in hope and safety there.
But what's your, I cannot let you go without asking, what's your why? Like, how did you ask a little Iris, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, most people don't go, I want to be an activist, or I want to be, a protector of the people. Like, when does, I was thinking, we did the Nina Simone project, and I've been diving so much into her history. And at 12 years old, like, it was just, she couldn't even articulate it, because she said they didn't even talk about race in her house like that. But at 12 years old, she was already standing up for her people. And I'm so fascinated by those type of people. I'm fascinated by you. Like, when did you know you wanted to do this work? Could you articulate it? Or like, why, what's your why? Like, why do you do it?
Well, I think the why is that I grew up in a very active household. So I was groomed to be Iris. I don't know if I had any decision in that. So I grew up in the Black house in Avondale. And that's where the activists of that time taught their young ones how to be politically, the safe and protection measures, what we needed to do economically, and where we should be at different stages in our lives.
Right.
And so I don't know if I had a choice. And I always thought Harriet Tubman was my great grandmother.
Wow.
I always thought her features on, and I often felt like her. If I had to free my people, how would I do it? And the resiliency and just the power of who she was and all the things that she did.
Yeah.
And so I grew up thinking that this is my birthright. And I knew that it was going to be lifelong.
Yeah.
It was never going to stop for me.
That's
and
true.
This last iteration, especially around the police work, I've been able to construct my life because I'm married to the owner of the business. I typically say it to people and they laugh at me. They say, "How are you able to do it?" I say, "Well, I sleep with the owner." And then people go, "What did she say?" Yeah. And so, and that has afforded me the opportunities to be able to think without having to worry about my job, to have to worry about retaliation, and not even thinking, because we never thought, well, I think we did think that, not everybody was going to come and do business with us, Black and or white, based on the politics we fight for our people, our family, the extended,
Yeah.
And so I just think that was the who.
Yeah.
The who Iris was developed in me.
Such a full circle moment. Because I remember like I didn't even put two and two together. Like, I would get our summer camp shirts from, Roadshow
Jesse was
Graphics,
like, "I know you don't remember
and
David."
I
was
didn't
like,
even
"No."
know like who I was dealing with, and it was so amazing. Yeah.
And even I was telling you that even in 2001, as we were developing our demands, that we wanted to protect Black art and Black artists.
Yep.
Because we knew
Because
then
Black art and Black
didn't
artists
get
have
it.
always been at the forefront of this
Yes,
conversation, and I don't think
yes.
people really recognize that.
No,
Like
no.
what Nina Simone did, what you know, a Richard Pryor, what you know, a Michael Jackson, even
Come
what
on.
like there's so much what artists do. James Baldwin, it just goes. The list goes on. Nikki
And
Giovanni.
music
It's
and art has always been part of the
yeah,
struggle as well.
and that's why I wanted to create DCP. That's why I do what I do with RDT, and like Revolution Dance Theater use theater and dance to change the world.
Come on.
And I firmly believe that we can do it because
Come
I've
on.
seen so many other examples of people who did it time and time again.
The lives
Yeah.
that you save. People
Yeah.
believe that it's, again, about policing the lives that are saved here.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what the next one is going through.
Yep. And if you can just inspire something in the next one.
Create that safe space.
Yep.
Love a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Dive into the blackness and the beauty of it. It's the baddest color of the land. That's why judges wear black robes. That's why your dirt is black. That's why the darkness, the still of the night is black. Black is the foundation of color. We should stop running from it and learn to love it and embrace it.
Celebrate it.
And celebrate it. Like we're going to do Friday at my birthday.
Yes, worth celebrating. Always worth celebrating. Thank you so much. This was, it encouraged my soul. Like, we do these conversations. I'm like, I don't know how many people watch or whatever, but it was always good for me.
Little healing, little healing.
Yeah, and if we can just share that with any of you, that's what I love. And wherever you are, whatever space you in, you don't have to have the title activist or whatever. I mean, I certainly don't.
I'm a taxpayer, by the way.
Right, a taxpayer.
I'm a very active taxpayer.
Yep, and I'm a dance teacher, a producer, whatever wherever you are in whatever space you're in, you can get involved in this work. You can stand up for what you believe in, and you can always fight for your right to feel safe. Right. Until next time, we'll see you on stage with David Choate.